Welcome to California Bar Prep, your study companion for the California Bar exam. In this lesson, Civil Procedure Advanced, Joinder, Discovery, and Preclusion Traps. Let's begin. Advanced Civil Procedure questions test litigation architecture. The rules are not hard individually, but the combinations are. A plaintiff adds claims. A defendant impleads a third party. A party seeks privileged material. Summary judgment is filed. And a later suit tests claim or issue preclusion. Your job is to keep each doctrine in its lane. Think in 3 columns: joinder permission, jurisdiction, and preclusion consequence. A joinder rule may permit a claim or party, but the federal court still needs subject matter jurisdiction and personal jurisdiction. If the party fails to assert a claim that should have been brought, preclusion or compulsory counterclaim rules may later bar it. Claim joinder. A plaintiff may join as many claims as it has against an opposing party, related or unrelated. But permissive joinder does not itself create subject matter jurisdiction. Each claim must have original or supplemental jurisdiction. Compulsory counterclaims. A counterclaim is compulsory if it arises out of the same transaction or occurrence as the opposing party's claim and does not require adding a party over whom the court lacks jurisdiction. A compulsory counterclaim must be asserted in the current action, or it is generally barred later. Permissive counterclaims. A counterclaim that does not arise from the same transaction or occurrence is permissive. It may be brought, but it needs its own jurisdictional basis, because supplemental jurisdiction usually will not cover an unrelated claim.
Cross-claims.
A cross-claim is a claim by one party against a co-party. It must arise out of the same transaction or occurrence as the original action or a counterclaim, or relate to property that is the subject of the action. Cross-claims are always permissive under the federal rules. Permissive party joinder. Multiple plaintiffs or defendants may be joined if claims arise out of the same transaction, occurrence, or series of transactions or occurrences, and there is at least one common question of law or fact. Required parties. A required party is one whose absence prevents complete relief among existing parties, whose interest may be impaired, or whose absence creates a risk of inconsistent obligations. If joinder is feasible, the court orders joinder. If joinder is not feasible, the court decides whether in equity and good conscience the action should proceed or be dismissed. If dismissed, the absent party is sometimes called indispensable. Impleader. A defending party may bring in a non-party who may be liable to it for all or part of the claim against it. The key is derivative liability, such as indemnity or contribution. Impleader is not proper merely because the third party may be directly liable to the plaintiff.
Intervention.
Intervention of right is available when the applicant has an interest relating to the property or transaction. Disposition may impair that interest, and existing parties do not adequately represent it. Permissive intervention is discretionary when there is a common question. Interpleader. Interpleader lets a stakeholder force competing claimants to litigate entitlement to property in one action. Statutory interpleader requires minimal diversity, an amount of at least $500, and nationwide service. Rule interpleader requires an ordinary jurisdictional basis. Class actions. All class actions require numerosity, commonality, typicality, and adequacy. Then the class must fit a type, most commonly damages under Rule 23b(3), which also requires predominance and superiority plus notice and opt-out rights. Scope. Discovery reaches non-privileged matter relevant to any party's claim or defense and proportional to the needs of the case. Information need not be admissible to be discoverable if proportional and relevant. Required disclosures. Federal practice requires initial disclosures, expert disclosures, and pretrial disclosures unless exempted. Failure to disclose can lead to exclusion unless substantially justified or harmless. Work product. Work product protects documents and tangible things prepared in anticipation of litigation or for trial by or for a party or its representative. Ordinary work product may be discovered on a showing of substantial need and inability to obtain equivalent information without undue hardship. Opinion work product, including mental impressions and legal theories, receives near absolute protection. Privilege. Attorney-client privilege protects confidential communications between attorney and client made for the purpose of obtaining or providing legal advice. Privilege protects communications, not underlying facts. Privilege can be waived by voluntary disclosure to outsiders. Experts. Testifying experts are subject to discovery through reports and depositions. Consulting experts who will not testify are protected absent exceptional circumstances. Summary judgment. Summary judgment is proper when there is no genuine dispute of material fact and the movement is entitled to judgment as a matter of law. The movement may show that the non-movement lacks evidence on an essential element. The court views evidence in the light most favorable to the non-movement. Judgment as a matter of law. JMLL may be granted after a party has been fully heard at trial if a reasonable jury would not have a legally sufficient basis to find for that party. Renewed JMLL after verdict is allowed only if the party made a proper pre-verdict JMLL motion. New trial. A new trial may be granted for prejudicial error, verdict against the weight of the evidence, excessive or inadequate damages, or misconduct. Unlike JMLL, the judge may weigh evidence for a new trial motion. Claim preclusion. Claim preclusion requires a valid final judgment on the merits, the same claimant against the same defendant or their privies, and the same claim. Federal courts usually define the same claim transactionally, all rights to relief arising from the same transaction or occurrence. Issue preclusion. Issue preclusion requires that the identical issue was actually litigated, actually decided, essential to the judgment, and asserted against a party or one in privity with a party to the prior case. Mutuality is not always required. Non-mutual defensive issue preclusion is often allowed. Non-mutual offensive issue preclusion is discretionary and may be denied if unfair. California distinction. California claim preclusion uses the primary rights theory, which may split what federal law would treat as one transaction into distinct rights. California also has distinctive class action and discovery procedures. For MBE purposes, use federal transactional claim preclusion unless told otherwise. A joinder rule does not automatically supply jurisdiction. Impleader requires derivative liability, not an alternative wrongdoer theory. Work product can sometimes be overcome. Attorney-client privilege generally cannot be overcome by need. Renewed JMLL requires a prior JMLL motion on the same ground. Claim preclusion bars claims that were brought or should have been brought. Issue preclusion covers only issues actually litigated and decided. Advanced questions often ask for the best procedural move. If a defendant wants reimbursement, think impleader. If absent parties claim the same fund, think interpleader. If a later case repeats a transaction, think claim preclusion. If it repeats a finding, think issue preclusion. Always identify the procedural tool, then check jurisdiction and timing. That's it for this lesson. Download California Bar Prep on the App Store for lessons on all 14 bar subjects, practice questions, and essay frameworks. Keep studying, and good luck on the bar exam.